Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to game 3 now of the match between Lecaf OZ and OGN Sparkies. Today we have another mirror match. Today we have Terran v Terran, played by none other than forGG, an MSL champion who has kind of dropped off the radar recently. I'm not sure, I haven't really seen many of his games. He hasn't really been in the individual leagues. And we have Leta playing for OGN Sparkies. Leta has not really been a name known for individual leagues, but he has been just tearing apart the opposition in Pro League. I think he's going around 15-3, maybe it's even higher in 1v1s. He is one of OGN's ace players. Right now he is going on a 6-game streak against Terran. So forGG may be in trouble, but forGG has beaten people like Jaedong, like Flash, another brilliant Terran player. So this should be actually a really interesting match. Both players are pretty good against Terran. Leta is pretty amazing against Terran. He's going 73%. forGG is 50% in his statistics, but he has beaten Flash. So we'll see how these players face off against each other. This map will be Rush Hour 3, and which I think is part of the reason why these players were chosen. By the way, Leta is blue Terran in the 3 o'clock position, and forGG is purple Terran in the 11 o'clock position. Now this is interesting. We see so many mirror matches, and that's probably because Rush Hour is so good for Terran players. It's statistically good for Terran v Zerg and Terran v Protoss, but once again, these statistics don't really say anything. These map imbalances don't really say anything for mirror matches, and that's why we're getting so many. I'm not sure if I agree with coaches on their choices, but this should be an interesting match simply because it is forGG versus Leta, some of the strongest players out there in the Pro League. And personally, I do really love Terran v Terrans. I know a lot of people dislike it because it's super long, usually super static, super boring, but I personally think that it's so exciting. Most of the gameplay is similar. People get tanks, Goliaths, inevitably go for dropships because of the lack of mobility for Terran. And really, I don't know, I find it extremely exhilarating, especially if you've watched games like Nada versus Fantasy or Flash versus Boxer in one of his comeback games. Those were played a while ago, but those were extremely good examples of how Terran versus Terran should be played. And here we have a lady not covering her face. She's probably an actress or a singer. And we are seeing a proxy barracks, by the way, from forGG. We are seeing a regular barracks placed at the ramp for Leta. On the other hand, this is I'm not actually sure. Is this a 4-player map? Rush Hour 3 is actually, I think, a 3-player map. And quite good for Terran because of all these narrow bridges. It really suits the Terran style of play. It allows 4 units to be channeled towards the tanks. It's really difficult to break tank lines, I think. Both players are going for refineries though, so this lends me to believe that this proxy barracks won't be that big of a deal. Mostly Terran players don't even use their barracks in this matchup. They may produce 1 or 2 Marines. Those Marines may prove interesting in the amount of harass that they can do on the other player because of that shortened distance. But I don't think Leta will fall for this. He is kind of walling off his ramp. He'll probably choose to produce a couple of Marines as well, and the timing will be approximately the same. Both players are setting up their factories. Perhaps not. I don't see forGG's factory, but he should have that coming up as well. And it'll be interesting to see what sort of strategies that these players go for. I think Rush Hour 3 might be a little more difficult to maneuver around because of the long distances. You have to cross several bridges. They'll probably not go for a ground push. I'm guessing that these Terran players will establish some sort of tank line and go for dropships. That might be the better idea. Dropships are very useful, and in Terran v Terran, we are seeing a fast expand actually, or not really a fast expand. We are seeing a 1 fact into expand from Leta. he probably feels safe. He has scouted forGG's base and has not seen anything too strange. Both players are going for that fast expansion. Or sorry, one fact into expansion. Leta is going for a starport though, so we may see dropships, we may see one single Wraith built just to do some harass, do something else. It'll be interesting to see what happens. This barracks from forGG is serving as a scout. It is quite the scout, and very noticeable, not like observers. Observers are a little less conspicuous, I'd have to say. But forGG does know, he is seeing all the tech that Leta has. This is actually quite an interesting use. He's pounding away at the supply depot with that vulture that he has produced from his factory. And here we're seeing a first-person VOD from, I think, forGG, I believe. This is actually an interesting way to use barracks. We've seen this more recently, I think, building a proxy-ish barracks and lifting off, producing maybe 1 or 2 Marines to do some harass, and then just being a general nuisance, landing in the command center, blocking the command center from landing. This is actually quite clever by forGG, especially since both went mirror builds, and now Leta will be behind because he won't have that earlier expansion, and both players have gone for the expansion build. But something is researching, I believe, in that starport, and it could be cloaked wraiths. Now, forGG is going for an armory, so he should be safe from wraith harass. As soon as he sees that wraith, he may also put down just an engineering bay or an academy, depending on the timing. That barracks is still being a general nuisance. I wonder why he lifted off from that position, from the middle position. Maybe he never really did land. Maybe he just threatened to do that. He does see the wraith now. forGG does see the wraith. He will be prepared for anything that Leta throws at him, at least through base. Maybe Cloak will come out before he does get that academy up. He's building the academy though. He should be safe. Leta probably knows this, probably won't continue to go race, but he does have that control tower. He can transition into dropships, maybe do something quite annoying with drops, but both players are looking towards a macro game right now. Both players are just expanding and kind of just laying back. forGG has to replace that barracks before getting any other factories. That was kind of unfortunate for forGG. He doesn't want to be delayed in the amount of factories that he puts up, places down. The Wraith is here though, but Goliaths come out just in time for forGG. forGG can probably just usher away this Wraith now, although there is cloaking now. The Wraith will probably chase down, there are 2 Wraiths out for Leta. They'll probably be able to pick off 1 or 2 SCVs, but I'm not sure how much of an investment, how useful this will be, because the comsats will be up. Those Wraiths will be picked off. Actually, those Goliaths were not placed in the correct position. Leta is doing quite well, rallying back and forth from both bases, just picking off SCVs, building buildings, being a general nuisance. He's doing quite well with these Wraiths, but there is a scan. He might lose this Wraith. He should be careful not to. He will be able to get away and repair those Wraiths. So forGG loses a couple of SCVs. He's not too behind, but we'll see. Leta, in the meantime, has set up a position right by that ridge. Rush Hour 2 is interesting because